Okay. Parshas Shemois. Are we in? I didn't hear it. You said it? We're live? Okay. Eliezer, you're making way too much noise, Eliezer. Okay, we're starting right now. Okay, as we know, that even though we're going to start from we're going to quote the early portions of Parshas Ve'era on page 318, 319, but we're going to go back to this week's Parsha. It's going to connect. Don't worry about it. So we have like this. One of the most famous concepts in Judaism is that we have 4, maybe 5, we'll go 4 cups of wine on Passover night. And where is the source for the 4 cups of wine? There's a couple, but the main famous source is from the beginning of next week's Parsha, Ve'era, when Hashem tells Moshe he's going to redeem. Here it says, the 4 expressions of redemption. That's what Oscar says. I should have looked that up earlier. The 4 expressions of redemptions. I'm reading Oscar. Having told Moshe that the impending revelation would be greater, that was revealed to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He's about to redeem the Jewish people. Hashem commands him once again to tell the Jews in his name he's about to redeem them. The 2 verses contain 4 different expressions representing progressive stages of the redemption. These 4 stages are the basis for the rabbinic requirement of 4 cups by Passover night. The expressions are, here goes, V'hatzeisi, I will take you out. We'll see what it means in a second. V'etzalti, I'll rescue you. V'ga'alti, I'll redeem you. V'lakachti, I'll take you. I will take you. What is that? That's 4 phrases. Just because I say the same thing 4 times with different synonyms. Don't be smirking. Whatever that word is, you know what I'm talking about. So whatever that word is, why does that mean it? What does that mean anything? So we go like this. Let's see what Oscar says. I know what Oscar says. We're going to do it now. V'hatzeisi is the first one. It says, I shall take you out. Here it says, God will remove the Jews from the burdens of slavery even before they were permitted to leave the country. So the first stage, what was the word they used, stage? The first stage of redemption was releasing the burdens of slavery. You're still under the dominion of the Egyptians. You still can't leave the country, but you're no longer a slave. That's the first one. When did the slavery end? It ended in Tishrei. 6 months before the actual Exodus ended in Tishrei. That's the first one. V'etzalti, I shall rescue. What does the word V'etzalti mean? God will take the Jews out of Egypt. The subjugation to Egypt will be formally ended. So that sounds like a physical leaving of Egypt. Next one, V'ga'alti. This alludes to the splitting of the sea. Because until then, the Jews feared they would be pursued by the former masters and returned slaves. Lakachti is the Jews and his people gave them the Torah at Sinai. So according to this, we have 4 stages. Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, before they got out, they're no longer slaves. Then he says, when they actually left. Then he says, by the sea, when they have emotional, we'll call it emotional, we know we're not going back at all. And then the Torah is another step of redemption, which is interesting. That's we have 4 words, expressions of redemption, which equals 4 cups of wine.
Say the 4 things again.
V'hatzeisi, I shall take you out.
Take you out, that's 1.
V'etzalti, I shall rescue you. Again, this is Arsenal English.
Isn't that like the same thing?
Yeah, if you've been paying attention, we said no, but yes, on the surface, it sounds the same. V'ga'alti, I will redeem you. V'lakachti, I shall take you out. So we said, even though it seems like the same, it's 4 different levels. There's one getting out of physical bondage of being a slave, but you're still there. One is physically leaving the place. One is emotionally when you know they're never going to get you. And the 4th is when you get the Torah at Sinai. Now, the Meshech Chachma, or as Chaskel loves to say, the Yosemite, who usually loves, has one of the great essays of all time, at the beginning of this parasha, of the which next parasha, which ties into this week's parasha. He wants to say like this. We have 4 expressions of redemption, to quote Artschool, and we have 4 cups. He says, I want to tell you what I'm going to do now. I'm going to give you the 4 behaviors, merits that the Jews did to merit the 4 stages of redemption, and I'm going to match them up to the 4 cups we have at a seder. That's like a lot going on. So we have 4 expressions and 4 cups, with not random 4 expressions to 4 cups. Each expression is going to represent one of the cups. So you have to analyze what the cup is on. And all of these 4 are represented by 4 positive behaviors, merits that the Jews are doing in Egypt. And it's not just a random 4, 4, 4. They're all going to be connected 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4.
It's 4 cups plus 1 cup that you
We're not discussing Elijah now, but yes. The first cup we do is Kiddush.
That's what I mean.
Sanctification of the holiday. We're going to go where this fits in now. Which expression does it work? We're going to see in a second. Which merit does it match up? Just to get us for the seder. Not testing anyone here. The second cup is drunk at the end of Magid. The end of Magid is when the second cup is filled and drunk, and that cup goes on the blessing of Gal Yisrael, the Redeemer of the Jews. The third cup, which also is a regular, would seem to you as a regular weekly cup, is the cup we say over grace after meals, at the bench. And the fourth cup is going to be what we do, over Halal. So we have 4 cups, seemingly random. 2 of them we do every week. Kiddush and benching we might do every week. We have another one by Gal Yisrael and Bahal. Let's match it up. So let's go to what the 4. Now we have 4 merits that the Jews did. Let's see what everyone remembers. These are some of the famous ones. First of all, they remained moral. Is that a word? They were not immoral, right? They didn't intermingle into marriage with the Egyptian population. 2, it's a good word. 2, they did not change their name. They were called Jewish names like Eliezer. 3, they didn't change their language. Right? Are these things everyone's aware of? And 4 is no. Everyone says that. It happens to be one of the things we're going to discuss in the Haggadah this year. It doesn't really say anywhere that they didn't change their clothing. It just rhymes better. They found something in the end, but if you look through most of Joshua, the 4th one is interchanged with they did not snitch on each other, lashon hara against each other. Remember Moshe Rabbeinu in this week's parsha. One of the reasons we connect this week's parsha, when he says Dasim Bavirim, they say, "Oh, you're going to kill the Egyptian. Oh, you're snitches." Now I know why the Jews are enslaved. You know what I'm talking about? Hold on, just to get it here. Here it says on page 299, it happened in the days that Moses grew up and he went out to his brethren and observed their burdens. He went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting. He said to the wicked one, "Why are you striking your fellow Jew?" He replied, "Who appointed you as a dignitary, a ruler, and a judge over us? Do you propose to murder me as you murdered the Egyptian?" Moshe was frightened and he said, "Indeed, the matter is known." Simple interpretation, indeed means the matter known. It means I thought I killed the guy with no witnesses and no ring cameras around. Little did I realize, indeed, the matter is known. People now know what's going on. Just for the Rashi, Oscar quotes it, might as well. The matter is known in the plain meaning. It was no longer a secret that Moshe had killed an Egyptian. Midrashically, it now became known to Moshe why the Jews deserved to suffer. They quarreled, and carried tales about one another. So Moshe, that means that's Dasim Bavirim, evil people. In order to merit the redemption, no snitches among us. So we have 4 behavioral positivities. They did not, Kiva used the right word, assimilate, didn't change their names, didn't change their language, and didn't snitch on each other. Now we have to match them up.
Now, when you say language, what about that Aramaic? How does that come in?
That's 1,000 years later, we're not discussing.
Okay.
2 good points, but not relevant.
All right.
No. Now, let's go through the 4 things the Moshe Hubner says. He says that he wants to start matching up the cups. So, the first cup, we said, is they were taken out from the dominion of the Egyptian people. What's the first blessing that we say in Kiddush every week? You said that? The phrase is Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanah. That's what we say. But we had Zam because Yom Tov, not Shabbos. Either Mekadesh or Shabbos, you sanctify the Shabbos, or Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanah, you sanctify the Yom Tovim. That's the Kiddush. First cup is Kiddush. What is Mekadesh Yisrael? What does that exactly mean? They're sanctified. Okay, in what way are we sanctified? So, the Moshe Hubner says brilliantly, the Yerushalmi says, especially when we talk about saying Kiddush on Yom Tov, Mekadesh Yisrael, we sanctify the Jews and the Zmanim. It means that the Jews control the calendar. We don't know if a month is going to be 29 days or 30 days. And we work on a calendar, and the calendars work. That's what the Jews are considered special. We run our own calendar system. Mekadesh Yisrael Zmanim. The Jews sanctify the calendar. But the Jerusalem Talmud says, when are the Jews worthy of running the calendar? When they do not assimilate. When they do not assimilate. Mm-hmm. So he says, okay, very good. The first cup that we drink over Kiddush, which is talking about sanctification, which is represented by not is assimilating goes to the first merit. The first merit is they did not assimilate. First cup is Mekadosh Yisrael. And the first phrase, V'hotzesi, means I'm taking you out from the control of being dominated by another nation. He says, listen, when you're intermarried, you can't be removed from another nation. You're part of it. The only way to be removed from another nation is when you stay separate. I can remove the lower hand if it's not really attached. But if it's like this, there's no such thing as removing it. When there's intermarriage, you can't be removed from the non-Jewish nation because you're part of it. So he said, very good. We have number one, being that they did not intermarry. They stayed faithful. And therefore they went under the dominion, and I'm able to remove them. We do the first cup. First cup is talking about Mekadesh Yisrael. The Jews are sanctified, which means they control the moon, which means they didn't intermarry. All easy across the board. A little difficult. Maybe we'll make a chart. Should we make a chart? Send you a chart, I think.
Weren't they required to live in a certain place?
Yes.
So how could they assimilate anyway, and if they wanted to?
I don't think
That
I mean,
it's assimilation of Jewish people.
But
it's been going on for 3,000 years.
But you couldn't just go where you wanted to go. You had to be in a certain area. The Jews had to be in a certain
Not sure.
area.
It's called a merit.
Didn't the Pharaoh
What you're
say,
doing is you're questioning why is it a merit to have no choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Didn't
Not
Pharaoh
a bad
say the Jews have to go into a certain area?
Maybe. Not bad. Okay. Second one.
We do see there was some assimilation to a few people, no?
There were some.
There were some who married Egyptians.
Well, listen, we can't say they were great because 80% didn't make it out of Egypt, right? According to Rashi, 80% died in Egypt. So obviously on some, you could say that the 20% that got out, they kept these 4 behavioral methods of not changing names. Maybe the 80% changed their names. Maybe. Again, depending on why you learn 80% got killed. But if you learn 80% got killed because they weren't up to the level of leaving, then it makes sense. The merits that you needed was not changing names, language. We'll go for this conversation, clothing and something else. Okay, those people got killed because they were wearing non-Jewish button-down colored shirts. That looks, I don't know. Anyway, they were not going around the name Eliezer. They were using the non-Jewish names. They were, okay, the point is that. So yes, the people, some assimilated. That's what he's saying. Both I'm saying good. The ones who assimilated on whatever level that means, didn't make it out of Egypt. So cup 1, the Kaddish Yisrael, equals behavioral number 1 of not intermarrying, which equals getting out from under the dominion of the Egyptians. What did he say? 30 cents. Okay, next one. He says that the word v'tzalti, the next word means, which is similar to a physical exemption. That means we know that the Jews were being slaughtered as well. Little babies being thrown into the Nile. This is not just being as like a slave, but being physically destroyed. Physically destroyed. He said, and what merit did they have to avoid that? He said, very simple. Even though they're being physically abused, physically destroyed, they had faith. The people who have faith were going to get out. People who have faith are going to get out. What characteristic of the 4 things, not changing your name, not changing your language, not snitching, because we already gave the 4th one of immorality, represents this? He said snitching. Because you know when snitching and quarreling begins, we know this when we're 5 years old, because you're looking at the other guy and you don't have full interaction with people and you don't have full faith. Because if you believed that you're getting exactly what you deserve, and that guy's extra money he couldn't take from you because God's watching the system, you wouldn't be as jealous. You wouldn't be as upset. It's up to God. What are you going to do about it? So the lack of speaking ill represented behind the scenes faith. Which of the 4 blessings is faith? Of the 4 cups, the Meshech Chochmah goes out of order on this one. Not the second term for the second cup, the second term for the third cup. Because the whole point, he says, of saying grace after meals, I don't want to come on to mankind. I'm not missing anything. I bless you for the food I have. I'm not blessing for the food someone else has. I don't need that food. I have what I need. So he says, Meshech Chochmah, brilliantly, according to Moshe Hubner, at least, brilliantly, that the characteristic of not snitching is based on faith. Faith is the result of the third cup of saying, God, thank you. And faith is what got him out of the physical bondage that they were in. So the first one was the slavery. Second one's faith. Next one. Third language is v'ga'alti. I shall redeem you. And what does I shall redeem you mean? That means simple, physical slavery, redemption from being a slave. What is the merit of redemption of being a slave? What's the characteristic of a slave we have? I will tell you. A slave in Jewish law goes back to, if we want to get back to procreation, a slave cannot fulfill the mitzvah of procreation. Because a slave has no relatives in Jewish law. No parents, no siblings, no kids, nothing. A slave is a standalone person. When you're a slave, no family. So if you want to say, no, I'm the opposite of a slave. Yes, I'm being physically abused by the Egyptians. Yes, I'm under the dominion of the Egyptians. But I don't look myself as a slave. I represent something from my past. I represent the person with family. You know what I got to do to represent my family? Not change my names. I identify with my grandfather. I'm taking my grandfather's name, my great-great-grandfather's name. Why? Because there's an ancestry. That's the word ancestry? There's an ancestral situation going on here, past and future. Which blessing does that go on? Of the 4 cups? Second cup. What was the blessing of the second cup I said before? Gal Yisrael. The Jews were redeemed. The only way you could be referred to as a Jew, if you're not a slave, a real slave. You could be physically a slave. A real slave is not a Jew. He's stateless. He's familyless. Not even a word I don't know. He's stateless and familyless. So the merit of not changing your names, which means I identify as a Jew, I identify with parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, gives you the merit of getting out of slavery, which has no identification, which equals the second blessing of Gal Yisrael. Last one's going to be an easy one. You just checked all the boxes down. So the fourth phrase is V'lakachti. Lakachti, Ashkel said, God took the Jews as his people when he gave them the Torah Sinai. He says, no, we're not talking about Torah here. Lakachti really means, yes, the Torah, but what does the Torah do for us? It makes us a nationality, a nation. A nation. You know, one of the identifying factors of a nation? Language. The national language. Nationality is the best language. So the fact is that you have to have a nationality. What of the 4 things is simple? What merit did the Jews have? They didn't change their names. We did that already. Immorality, we did already. Didn't snitch already. What's the last one left? They didn't change their language. You know what that means? You know, you merit when you don't change your language. You merit becoming a nation. A nation against the Torah. And where do you put that blessing on? We only have 1 cup left, the 4th cup. What's the 4th cup? Raise our cup and howl when we say we're going to return to our homeland.
But didn't you say the 3rd cup is the language?
Yes, I just said our 4th cup.
And what about, and the 4th cup is also the language?
No, 3rd cup. No, 3rd cup was Lashon Hara. 3rd cup was Lashon Hara, was evil speak. Right?
But what,
so, recap. By the way, go to RabbiHubner.com and the video will have a chart. God willing, I'll send it. And we'll have a chart. So we have what the Moshe Hubner brilliantly did is like this. When you go into Pesach, you normally assume there's 4 expressions of redemption equals 4 cups. You don't think more into it. Okay, 4 cups for redemption. You might know a measure that says there's 4 meritorial behaviors that works as well. Okay, I like you. We're lining up the ducks 4, 4, 4. Moshe Hubner saying, no, it's not just 4, 4, 4. It's 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4. They are actually not randomly 4. Each one matches up well. So again, as a quick recap, the first merit was they stayed non-immoral. What was the word used again? They didn't intermarry. They didn't intermarry. That gets the concept of Makadeh Yisrael, the 1st cup. Because the 1st cup is talking about getting us out from the dominion, which represents the separation that we ourselves put on ourselves. Because we remain to ourselves, we were easily taken out. He actually gives the example of a child within the mother's womb, which is a pasuk used about the Exodus of Egypt. The child in the mother's womb is a separate entity. That's why it comes out easily. If it's a mesh, it becomes a bigger problem. Second merit was they didn't speak evil. By not speaking evil, where does that come from? It comes from a faith that I have, what I have, you have, we're all together. A unity among them. But faith, what is that? That's the 3rd blessing. Because the 3rd blessing is Berch Samaz, which talks about God. I don't want to come on to other people. They didn't change their names. Meant we identify with people. We are not slaves. You weren't slaves, you get out. What's the What's the coast? The second one, which says Gal Yisrael. And the final one is they didn't change the language, which merits them being a nationality, which merits them getting a Torah, and we sing at the Hallel, we're going to be back in our homeland, because that's what nationality is. We will stop there, yeah? But yeah, question?
Interesting. So in terms of the cups, you went 1, 3, 2,
Yes.
4.
Yes.
But in terms of is that because the statements go 1, 2, 3, 4? Because you're describing the statements in order of the Torah, how
Correct.
they're listed. And as it happens, that even 1, 2, 3, 4 statements
Don't match up 1, 2, 3, 4 cups.
It goes to 1, 3, 2, 4
in cups.
in cups.
But and in merits, the Medrash writes it similar. Correct. The cups are out, according to his interpretation, the cups are out of order. I will say, just because I want to say it over, why not? Part of it, that Rabbi Zaychik, says it interesting. The Jews didn't snitch on each other. He expressed it when, of course, during 210 years, but in the final year when Moshe showed up and he started talking to Pharaoh about a 3-day vacation, most of the Jews knew this ain't 3 days. We're out of here for good. And if one Jew would have snitched, it would have fallen apart. When Pharaoh let him go, in some wine, he said it's only 3 days, that's why he chased him down. Which means no Jew snitching was a much more monumental task than we understand. The Jews, again, we have to figure the 80%, 20%. But he says to show you how we control the world, how people control the environment. He says the Pasuk tells us a very strange thing. The night that the Jews left, the dogs were not barking. He says, who cares? Why is the Torah spending prime real estate on such a minutiae detail that nobody cares about? And probably most of them recognize. He says, because that's trying to tell you one of the merits that they got out. They got out because they never snitched on each other. They had the ability to keep silent. And they created an atmosphere in the world that even the dogs can keep silent. But normally should be barking. Because we have to realize our actions control the planet. We can stop the fires by being good Jews. Good people. Of course, for water, but that's how it starts in the first place. Chazaka Baruch, as Hakiva likes to say. Okay, I was going to do another approach. Maybe we'll do it next week. 4, 4, 4. I will put a chart on, Mitzvah. God willing, a chart on. Good question.